What's up, YouTube? Leo Sheng here, host of the Extreme Fully Fishing channel. Today I'm bringing you guys a full educational video on the channel. I know it's been a little while since I have brought you guys such a lengthy video full of knowledge, so I finally decided to film one, so you guys can watch this stuff and benefit a little bit, from watching the channel itself. As you guys probably have realized already by the title of this video is going to be 100% about trout, specifically stocked trout, okay? This video is going to be divided in different sections. As you know, of course, watching the entire video is not mandatory, but if you guys really want to get that knowledge and become better anglers, of course, I encourage everyone to watch every part of this video, okay? I'm leaving the times of the different parts of the video here in the video so nobody complains about it, but pretty much the first part of the video is going to be about the history of trout fishing. That's where I am going to talk to you guys a little bit about how trout fishing became so popular nowadays. Why is it a tradition for government agencies to stock trout, etc. Second part of the video, we're going to talk about technicalities. I'm going to talk a little bit about fluorocarbon line, okay? In that part of the video, I'm going to give you guys pretty much some knowledge on what are the differences between 100% fluorocarbon and coated fluorocarbon, and why using fluorocarbon line is so important for catching stocked trout. Part 3 of the video is going to be about one of the most exciting trout baits in the market, okay? I'm talking about, of course, BERKLEY power bait, okay? I mean, come on, if you guys fish for stock trout, chances are you probably have heard about the BERKLEY power bait, right? In part 3 of this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to properly use power bait. Of course, you can just put power bait on the hook and throw it out there, but if you want to become a better angler, if you want to best the trout, there are definitely some hints and advices that I would give to everyone out there so that they can catch more trout, okay? And finally, the final part of this video is, of course, field experience, right? AKA fishing. That is the portion of the video where I pretty much compiled a bunch of different videos from different dates of me fishing the PENNYPACK Creek, and catching trout in this 2016 fall trout stocking season here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay, let's get this educational video started. I hope you have your popcorn with you because this is going to be a long one, but I can promise you that after you watch this whole thing, you are going to appreciate trout so much more than before. Not to mention, you are going to be a better trout angler yourself, at least for the stock trout. All right, let's get this thing started. In this portion of the video, we're pretty much going to talk about the history of trout fishing. Now, I don't know about you, all right, but when I first came here to the United States of America, which was back in 2007, and I started fishing here around 2011, right? I kind of realized that Pennsylvania had a trout stocking program, and for me, it was a little bit odd, I came here as an immigrant, right? And I kept thinking, like, why is it that they have a trout stocking program? I wasn't against it, don't take me wrong, I loved it. But I kept thinking, why is it that they don't have a bass stocking program, or a walleye stocking program? Why is it that they don't have an opening day, right, with so many people out there for other species of fish? Why it had to be the trout? And in this portion of the video, this is precisely what we're going to talk about. What exactly is it that made trout fishing so interesting, that made trout fishing so entertaining, that we carry on nowadays in 2016 as a tradition for future generations of anglers to come? Well, when we talk about the history of fishing, right, we really need to go way, way back there, We need to talk about ancient civilizations. We need to talk about ancient, empires. We're talking about a long time ago. And that is because when you look at the history of trout fishing, truth be told, you are pretty much looking into the history of fishing itself. We live now in 2016. So let me ask you, the viewer right now, a question, okay? If I were to ask you, the viewer, when do you think that trout fishing, right? When do you think that humanity really started to go out there and started thinking, you know, I want to catch some trout on artificial flies, you know, like, or artificial lures? When exactly is it that it happened? You know, I want to ask you this question right now. Do you think this started happening around 200 years ago, or maybe 500 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, or maybe more than 1,000 years ago? I'm gonna give a few seconds for you to think about, okay? Because this is pretty much what trout fishing is all about, okay? Trout fishing is a tradition. If we look up the documents that were left to us, you know, all the writings and the books and everything, right? And we look through the history of fishing, one of the first records ever of someone who wrote a book talking about fishing, all right, is way back there. Like I said, ancient empires, ancient times, okay? Back in 200 AD, approximately, there was one dude called Claudius Aelianus, okay? A Rome guy. And he wrote a book called De Natura Animalium. 200 AD, okay, folks, I'm talking about 1,800 years ago. This guy described in this book, De Natura Animalium, how Macedonians were fishing right next to the river Astraeus using little imitations of bugs. I think the name of the bug at the time was the Pupurus, I could be wrong, but they were using imitations and drifting those imitations down the Astraeus river trying to catch these trout. And I mean, when I tell people this kind of stuff, you know, it is kind of mind-blowing, you know, because it makes you think. 1,800 years ago, fellas, the Macedonians were already there, devising their little flies, using artificial lures to catch trout. That is when, in the history of humanity, trout fishing, okay, or even fishing itself, really starts. Now, of course, you know, there were other, in the past, right, people used to fish and everything, but the earliest records is really around 200 AD. I believe there's one dude called Theocritus who wrote a book about 300, 400 years before Claudius Aelianus, and he also described in his book a little bit about people trying to imitate bugs, you know, and throw it out there for fish, but he really didn't give any specifics, you know. So the history of trout fishing itself and the history of fly fishing itself, okay, really starts with Claudius Aelianus' De Natura Animalium. Claudius Aelianus wrote that book, but to tell you guys the truth, and this is just a side note, alright, he didn't write that book based on his direct observations. It's not like he went out there and he saw it and he was like, oh, you know. Most of the book was actually a collection of writings from other authors of the time, okay, including mostly Pliny the Elder, okay, so it was like a compilation of different works, but needless to say, regardless, it was a beautiful book, you know, because it described the art of fly fishing, the art of trout fishing beautifully. And then you have this period of time, right, now we are talking about the Romans, Macedonians, all there, fishing beautifully for trout, right, and the next famous, you know, piece of document, right, in history towards trout fishing doesn't come until the 1400s. As a matter of fact, the end of the 1400s, okay, which is when Madame Juliana Berners come out with the Book of St. Albans, right? And this is where usually when I tell people about the history of fishing, they look at me, right, and they're like, Leo, why is it that between 200 AD and 4000 AD, there are really no documents, you know, when it comes to the sport of fishing, right? Why is it that there are no description of folks fishing out there or documents, you know, that emphasize how people loved fishing out there between that period of time, right? And this is when I tell people that when you know about history and you learn a lot about history in school, kids, you should learn a lot of history. in school, right? You know that humanity went through a lot of hardships, all right, between 200 AD to 1000 to the end of the 1400 AD. You know, we are talking about a lot of wars, a lot of civilizations that fell, a lot of civilizations that arose, you know, all that stuff. We had the Black Plague, right? It killed a lot of people. So in other words, between that amount of time, you know, people just didn't have a lot of leisure time, you know, to go out there and really do their fishing, you know. I mean, when you wake up in the morning, you need to think about, you know, not getting killed today because there's war everywhere, right? And your mom and your dad need to think about what to put on the table to eat. You really can't just go out there with Mother Nature, enjoy, and just catch fish, right? This is what I'm talking about. But anyways, it wasn't until the 1400s, end of the 1400s, right, that Madame Juliana Berners in England, in Europe still, right, came out with the Book of St. Albans. That was really one of the classics after Claudius Aelianus' De Natura Animalium, right, that was really, really focused on fishing. If I'm not wrong, the first edition of the Book of St. Albans came out on 1486. And they talked about, you know, hobbies that a gentleman in England had back in the days. It talked a little bit about falconry. It talked a little bit about heraldry. It talked a little bit about hunting. But it wasn't until 496, 10 years after that, that they really added the treatise on fishing. And that is the Book of St. Albans. And that book, folks, is a beautiful, beautiful book, all right? Because it is in that book that Madame Juliana Berners really gave us, all right, just humanity overall, the first steps in how to manufacture rods, you know, rods that were breakable in 3 parts. She gives in that book all steps from beginning to end on how to make those rods. In that same book, she gives us, you know, the knowledge that she has on how to make 12 different types of flies to catch trout, you know. So as you can see, the history of trout fishing really gave a huge leap from 200 AD to 1496 AD, okay? And, you know, this is interesting because so far in this video, we're just talking about, you know, trout fishing, right? As a type of sport fishing, right? But of course, since the ancient times also, trout fishing was really, really popular when it comes to food as well. If you guys look up on the internet, there was this one dude called Opium, if I'm not wrong, that lived around the same time of Claudius Aelianus. He published a book, if I'm not wrong, the name was Haliotica, and in that book, he's the first guy to describe properly the technique of trout tickling. This is something that probably, you know, lots of you guys never heard about, but trout tickling is pretty much catfish noodling. You know, when people go down there and, you know, catch the catfish by the hand, noodling. It is pretty much the noodling for catfish, but trout version. So you see, back in the days, 200 AD, okay, we're talking about times of the Roman Empire, there was already one dude who recorded there in the books how ancient people were there in the little creeks, okay, just stepping on the water right in the middle of the creek, putting their hands under rocks and tickling the belly of the trout, going from behind, right, so that they could get the trout for food, all right? So as you guys can see, right, as I go through the history of trout fishing with you, I just want you to keep in mind, right, that trout has been famous since ancient times, okay? Both in terms of being a sport fish and both in terms of being food, a food supply, okay? Back in the days, come on, you guys didn't hear people say things like, oh, I'm gonna wacky rig a Senko and catch a bass, you know? That didn't happen all that time ago, right? But trout fishing, that is truly a tradition, right? And I mean, I'm just gonna summarize the rest of the history not to make this video too boring for you guys, right? But in terms of sport fishing, after Madame Juliana Berners came out with the Book of St. Albans and the fishing edition in 1496, right? In the 600s, I think it was 653, I'm not sure, the first edition of the Complete Angler came to the market, right? Isaac Walton, right? I'm not sure about the date of that one. I don't remember if it was the 1500s or the 1600s. You guys can look it up. But Isaac Walton was a big influence, right, in terms of the classics of trout fishing. He wrote a book that is very nice to read. I have read the whole book already. If you haven't, I'm linking it in the description. I would, definitely recommend you to get a book and read it because it is really a classic on fly fishing. The guy describes in the book how to catch different species of fish, not only the trout now, using different types of flies, and at different times of the year. So it is a very pleasant book to read. And when you ask me, right, about all those questions that we mentioned at the beginning of this video, how is it that we have this tradition of stocking trout nowadays, right? How is it that we have this tradition, right, of a catch and take fishery, right, or a trout opening day? It is all related to this, okay? After Isaac Walton came out with the Complete Angler, folks at that time in history really had some leisure time to fish again. They passed down the hobby, generation through generation. And after people from England came to the United States of America, right, that's exactly what happened. A few copies of Isaac Walton's The Complete Angler also came from England to the United States, and this is how in the United States the sport fishing aspect of trout became established. Nowadays you still have folks who are 100% traditional. They like to go to the trout stocked areas, and you guys know all about it. They use the dry flies, they like to be, I only use dry fly, I don't use wet fly. They go there and do all that all that fly fishing. Or you got the guys who are less traditional but they still go there and do some fly fishing, and they're all about CPR, catch photo release, right? Similarly, trout as a food, which is part of the tradition nowadays, really came throughout history as well. As I mentioned to you guys, back in the 250 ADs, right? Oppian wrote about trout thickling, and guess who wrote about trout thickling, in the 1600s, which also gave kind of a time leap, right? It was William Shakespeare, okay? If you guys are not familiar with Shakespeare, you guys really got to study a little bit, right? I'm talking about the guy who wrote Othello, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, right? And in one of his plays, I think this play was written in 601 and 602, like between 601 and 602. Yeah, he wrote The Twelfth Night, which was a romantic comedy, really Shakespeare style, But I mean, the fun part of the story is, right, there is like a sentence in the story, where they talk about trout thickling, right? That a lady wants to fool a guy into believing that another lady is in love with him. Pretty much she wants to embarrass him, and she pretty much tells the dude, that she needs to catch him just like trout are thickled, So the whole culture of trout thickling, catching trout with your bare hands, and use it as a food supply, right? For the table, not as a sport angling, really passed down through the generations as well. If you look at in the 1900s, another portion of history, right? 1930s, right? We are talking about the Great Depression that went around the world. If you guys study your history, right? 1929, that it was the crash of the market in New York. United States entered a really bad depression. People really started to worry about what, they were eating on a daily basis, right? Because economy just, the market crashed. And the whole world suffered with it, including England, Europe, Back in the 1930s, during that whole decade, there are occurrences of people in England in the middle of shallow creeks, pretty much trout thickling, even though nowadays it is against the law. But at that time, they were really concerned about what to put on the table to eat. So as you guys can see, when it comes to the history of fishing, right, we are really talking about the history of trout fishing as well. It goes deep. It goes back very deep, right? And I wanted to share this with you guys because when you guys know about this history, when you guys know when it started, why it started, and why things are like they are nowadays, you really start to appreciate the sport and the fish a little bit more. So next time you are here in the United States of America, right, and you go to a trout approved water and you are catching a stocked trout, a trout that was raised for you to take home to eat, right, by your governmental agency, when you catch that fish, right, I want you to think a little bit more about it. Now that you know the whole history about it, I want you to think a little bit more about it. I want you to be able to appreciate that fish, because you did a good job right there. You kind of fooled the fish, right? You kind of bassed the trout. Anyways, right, this is of course for the folks who caught trout. There are a lot of people out there who are not very proficient in catching a stock trout, which is another reason for this video. All right, this concludes section number 1 of this video, the history of trout fishing. In this portion, hopefully you have learned where trout fishing came from, how exactly trout fishing was passed through generation as a sport fish and as a source of food, and why nowadays, you should be able to understand now, why is it that nowadays in the United States of America, right, we have trout stockings everywhere, and why is it considered a tradition, and why is it so entertaining to go catch those stock trout. Let's go into section number 2 of this video now, where I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the technicalities of fluorocarbon line. In this portion of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about fluorocarbon line. When it comes to trout fishing, I'm telling you right away, I recommend everyone out there to use fluorocarbon line. And this is the fluorocarbon line that I actually use nowadays. You guys can see that in all my trout videos and all my microfishing videos as well, especially in small creeks. It is the KastKing fluorocoat, right? Which is actually not 100% fluorocarbon. It is a coated fluorocarbon line, okay? Which is precisely why in this portion of the video as well, I'm going to explain what are the main differences between 100% fluorocarbon line and who needs to use that and for what, and coated fluorocarbon line, okay? And who needs to use that and for what. So let me just tell you guys this thing this way, okay? Back in the days when extreme fluid fishing didn't know any better, I was paying a pretty expensive amount of money for 100% fluorocarbon line. I wanted the main characteristics of fluorocarbon line, okay? And the two most important things about fluorocarbon line, in my opinion, okay, is one, invisibility. All right, the index of refraction of the fluorocarbon line is very, very close to the index of refraction of water. This is physics. But in common words, when two indices of refraction in a certain medium are very close to each other, that object in that medium becomes invisible. Okay, this is truly optics. Okay, this is physics. So in other words, when you have this object in water, right, this fluorocarbon line inside water under indexes of refraction are very close to one another, this line here becomes invisible for everything that is inside the water, aka in this case the fish. The second characteristic that was very, very important for me in terms of fluorocarbon line was, of course, the density of the line. Compared to other lines in the market, right, monofilament and braided line, fluorocarbon is really denser. And as you guys know, again, in terms of physics, denser the line, faster it sinks, better it sinks. And that's why in many of my YouTube videos, right, you guys see me fishing a creek, either microfishing or trout fishing, I'm using fluorocarbon line and I don't have any additional weights on my line. I get those types of questions on my channel all the time, hey man, you don't use a split shot? You just use a hook on your bait? Yes, that is exactly what I use. That is exactly what I use. I cast out there just the hook, just the bait, because the fluorocarbon is denser than other lines. It does its job. It sinks faster, okay? Now, one big problem that I was having with my 100% fluorocarbon line, okay, was that it was getting frayed very easily. Every time I put on a little split shot and I remove the split shot, or I put on a little lock float and I remove the float, it was just the line was getting frayed so easily. And you guys know what happens when line gets frayed, right? When you're out there and you have frayed line and you bump into a little rock or you catch a fish and the fish fights hard, that's it. It snaps your line, you lose the fish, you lose your gear, you know? And that is definitely not good. Another problem that I was having with 100% fluorocarbon line was the knot strength. I was tying my knots, I used the reinforced clinch knot, 90% efficiency, as you guys know. Palomar and reinforced clinch knots. Clinch knot are the knots that I really recommend for everyone out there when tying most of the stuff out there. I was using my reinforced clinch knot, and sometimes the line would just break at the knot, right? Because it is 100% fluorocarbon. And that's when I found out about the KastKing fluorocoat, okay, which is pretty much coated fluorocarbon, and that's what I use nowadays. Not only this line is cheaper in the market, which means I save money from my side, right? It still has the uses that I need for my fishing, giving me even more advantages out there, okay? So the line is still invisible because it is 100% fluorocarbon on the outside, and the line is cheaper, which is an advantage for you if you don't need 100% fluorocarbon. It is cheaper because the inside of the line is actually copolymer, okay? It's not fluorocarbon. It is a combination of copolymer, which is coated with fluorocarbon. That increases my knot strength. That helps me when my line gets frayed. Even when my line gets frayed with this fluorocarbon line, which is coated, chances of losing that fish, chances of my line snapping are less, because I have now not only 100% fluorocarbon, I don't have only one material, I have two different material compositions. I have the fluorocarbon on the outside, and I have a copolymer that is more resistant on the inside. So as you guys can see, in the end, extreme fully fishing really switched from 100% fluorocarbon to coated fluorocarbon because it works better for my fishing style, okay? And this is actually what I recommend for all trout anglers out there, okay? I really recommend the KastKing fluorocoat. It works great for me, never disappointed me, saves you money, and works like fluorocarbon. The only downside that I could give it to you, okay, when it comes to the coated fluorocarbon versus 100% fluorocarbon is that the coated fluorocarbon, of course, sinks is lower than the 100% fluorocarbon. After all, like I said, the coated fluorocarbon has two material densities and the 100% fluorocarbon has only one. So of course, the 100% fluorocarbon, it is fluorocarbon, it will sink faster than a coated line fluorocarbon. But what I was able to find out after using the KastKing fluorocoat for quite a while is that even though this is coated fluorocarbon, I still don't need extra weight, extra split shots, or extra anything to make my stuff sink. You know, when I'm fishing in the creek and stuff like that. I throw the line out there, even with a small hook. And you guys know I use very small hooks. And the line still sinks. So it works for me. A lot of people, I'm telling you guys about this kind of stuff because when it comes to trout fishing, right, you gotta realize that a trout has a very keen sense of wariness. They are very, very wary fish. When you go out there to catch your trout and you use monofilament, the trout can actually see the monofilament line. And if the trout are very finicky, doesn't matter if they're wild, stocked, okay, or native, all right, if they see that monofilament line, they may not bite, all right? I'm telling you this right now, which is exactly why I recommend fluorocarbon, okay, for people to use out there. And finally, right, I just wanted to point it out, right? If you don't want to use like fluorocarbon for your entire spool, because some people just don't like to do that, that is not a big problem. You know, when you go out there trout fishing, you can still use your regular braided line or monofilament, but just to fool the fish, you know, make sure you tie a leader, all right? People use fluorocarbon leaders all the time, right? All you do is make sure you get a line, a leader that is long enough, 12 to 18 inches maybe, and tie together with your braided and monofilament, and problem solved. But again, in terms of technicalities, when it comes to fishing lines, okay, either if you use 100% or coated, I would go with the coated because it's cheaper and it's more effective, at least with power bait. in my opinion, okay, I would definitely go fluorocarbon, okay? So engrave this in your mind. If you were fishing for trout using conventional gear or spinning gear, don't forget to use fluorocarbon, because that will truly increase your chances of catching fish. Now that I'm done talking about the line, let's talk a little bit about the Berkley power bait, okay, which is seriously a very good weapon for stock trout, okay? Let's do that. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. When I first started fishing for stock trout here in the United States of America, you know, I was just like any other amateur in the field. You know, I went there, I didn't know about the fluorocarbon line that I just explained. You know, I just went there with my monofilament, not an ultralight setup. I went there with like a light setup, you know, 1500 reel model. And, you know, just bought some night crawlers and some wax worms, right? All that stuff that I would think trout would eat. And, you know, I remember my first time ever fishing for stock trout here in Philadelphia. I went to the PENNYPACK Creek, and folks, I didn't catch a single fish. I was casting my nightcrawler out there with a few split shots and all that type of stuff, you know, and I wasn't landing a single fish. And the dude who was across the creek on the other side, fishing just a few feet away from me, he was catching fish non-stop. And you know, I was bugged. You know, I was like, I'm doing a cast and retrieve. I'm not leaving it out there, you know, and letting stay, right? I'm thinking that the current drifts the nightcrawler, the trout is kind of gonna see it and is gonna bite it. And that dude is leaving 3 rods in the water, not moving them at all, right? So being the amateur angler, of course I went to the guy and I was like, hey, hi sir, you know, I was like, hi sir, can I see what you're using for bait, you know, because I wanna learn how to fish for trout. It is my first time out here, right? I gave the dude the whole story. Now what he showed me, fellas, was something that amazed me, and it was something that changed my life. I'm not kidding, and I'm not sponsored by Berkley Power Bait either, okay? This thing here changed my life, man. What he showed me was a container just like this, okay, but without the salmon egg, okay, flavor here. It was just an orange regular power bait. And when I looked at that, man, I was like, you are catching trout on that thing? And the guy looked at me and he was like, yeah, man, this is one of like the most famous baits in the market. Everyone uses this dough. I was perplexed, you know, I was like, what? And I remember I went there a few more times, not believing that the power bait could do anything for me. And it was in one of those tries that I caught a trout while retrieving my nightcrawler, right? I was so happy about it. And after catching that first trout, you know, the feeling was so good. I wanted to catch more. I went to Walmart myself. Yes, I went to Walmart and I got myself a Berkley power bait, orange color. As a matter of fact, orange color is one of my favorite colors. And I have been catching trout ever since. I learned about the fluorocarbon. I learned about the power bait, how it floats, how it is supposed to be used. And I've been catching trout ever since. So in this portion of the video, I am going to teach you guys how to use Berkley power bait. Let's get started by making a rig first, okay? So I'm just gonna show you guys here how to make a rig. Let's do that. So what I got with me here is a stretch of 4 pounds test line, okay? This is KastKing fluorocoat, like I said, that 100%, that coated fluorocarbon. And I will get here one little mustad hook size 10, okay? This is a little size 10 mustad J-hook barbless, okay? And I'm telling you, oh, I'm sorry, this is not barbless. It does have a barb, okay? I use the barb when I use the power bait because I take the trout home to fish anyways. If you guys ever use power bait out there in the market, you know that when you use it, right, most of the times the stock trout really inhales it. You know, it really goes all the way in, so you know the fish doesn't really have an option, right? It chokes on it, and then most of the times it dies, right? Anyways, I'm gonna use my regular reinforced clinch knot here real quick just to tie this hook on, and I'm gonna show you guys how it is done. If you guys ask me why I have selected a hook that is so small, right, that is because, like I mentioned previously, the trout is really a fish that is very, very wary of its surroundings, okay? In other words, its wariness is top-notch. And when a fish has a wariness that is top-notch, you want to go as finesse as possible. I always recommend folks, a small hook, size 10 or size 8 maximum. And sometimes I see folks out there fishing using a size 12 hook, okay? So very small hook. Now, of course, this size hook I use here in my area for trout in the range of 10 to 14 inches, okay? If I see that, there are trout out there that are bigger and I'm using 4 pounds test line right here, right? If I'm going to catch trout that are a little bit bigger, I may go a little bit bigger both on the line and both on the hook, right? I may go with 6 to 8 pound test line for the hook, and I may go with a size 4 to size 6 hook, but never bigger than size 4 for power bait, okay? Anyways, all you need for your rig is one little hook, your line, and finally a little split shot, okay? You want to keep it as basic as possible. The amount of leader that between the split shot and the hook that you want to give really depends on how deep you are fishing and where you are fishing, okay? For this demonstration, I'm gonna give it about 6 inches, okay? 6 inches is about, the distance that I'm going to use for this, okay? Don't use your teeth for the split shot, by the way, okay? It has lead in it, I don't know. Sometimes it does. Anyways, then that's not good for you, okay? Use your pliers, all right? So anyways, this is the setup that you want, all right? One little single split shot on very thin fluorocarbon line, so it is invisible, and this is your hook right here, very small hook. And the premises of your rig is that you have the setup right here, and after you cover your hook with power bait floats. So when you have your rig all the way down there in the water, right? And the split shot is all the way down, this part here, right, with the hook is going to float with the power bait. So the fish will be able to see it, okay? And by the way, of course, the size of the split shot that you put in your rig will depend on how high the current of the area you are fishing is, If you have a lot of current, make sure you put a bigger split shot. If you have current that is almost non-existent or very little, you want to use a very small split shot. But once again, for this setup, like I repeated many times, you want to go as light as possible so that when the fish sees your setup, it is as natural as possible, all right? So you can fool the fish into biting your power bait. Now, here with me, I got my little water barrel right here, and we gotta put some power bait on it, so I gotta show you guys how exactly is the power bait in the water. Let's get that started. It's gotta get a little bit shaky right now. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm gonna open this brand new power bait right here, salmon egg flavor. When it comes to power bait color, I always like to tell people, always carry 2 to 3 colors with you on one fishing session. And that's because if you use this color, for example, orange, right? And the trout kind of, you kind of missed 2 or 3 bites on the same trout, the trout may get used to the color. After you miss the trout even one time on one color power bait, after you punch it out there again, the trout may look at it and the trout may really think, you think you can fool me with that? I know that that is not natural. In other words, when I miss a fish with one color, right, and I know that there's not a lot of fish around, what I do is I switch the color, okay? But when it comes to colors in the market, and this is just my personal preference, my favorite colors is really the orange. I find the orange to be very, very natural. Yellow, also very, very natural. I'm sorry, this one here is the orange. This one here is the yellow, and white. So I would go yellow, orange, white. These are the 3 colors that I mostly use. This one here that I have with me here, the pink purple, I really didn't want to buy it. But this fall, I thought, you know, I'm gonna make a pink video special, right? And it didn't happen, so I still have it with me. Anyways, when you use the power bait, you gotta realize right away that a power bait has a really, really weird smell. It has a truly weird smell, okay? Not for human consumption, okay? Be very gentle with your power bait, okay? Don't overdo it, but don't underdo it. One finger, stick it in, get it. This is usually how I do it. You see, I always get a little bit more than usual. Make sure you cover your entire hook. Don't leave any parts of the hook exposed. No parts whatsoever, okay? If you leave any part of the hook exposed, boy, that trout will see that and it is not going to bite. I'm telling you right away, okay? So there you go. You don't need to exaggerate on the size of the power bait, okay? Check this out. All right, it's covering the entire hook. Let me get my little split shot here, and you know, it's not very tight because the line is only 4-pound test line, but see, this is the setup that you want, okay? And after you put inside the water, haha, black. You see, there you go. This is how pretty much it goes. I don't know how well you guys can see here inside the barrel, but you see the split shot is all the way down, and then you have the little thingy here, right, floating here in the water. This is how you want your power bait to be. And if you think, you know, oh, this I don't want this depth, right? If you think this is a little bit too high for me, or a little bit too short for me, right? All you need to do to change the depth is you move your split shot, right? If I move my split shot a lot, okay, there we go, a lot, and I put it in again, back, right? What is gonna happen? Check this out. Yeah, the power bait is floating all the way up now, right? Because, you know, it reached the surface of the water. If I want my power bait to be very, very close to the bottom, right, almost hugging the bottom, I leave the line just a little bit, right, between both of them. And when you put it in, what happens? It is very close to the bottom, right? And again, once again, right, if you want it to be even closer to the bottom, that's all you need to do, right? And it floats just a little bit. This is pretty much the magic of power bait, all right? There is nothing else to it. This is power bait, and this is how it works. A lot of people usually ask me, why is it that a stock trout go for power bait, right? Number one, of course, it is the scent that Berkley puts in this little product. But number two, it is because this works really, really well with stocked trout. That is the key word, stocked. If you go to a stream, that has wild trout, meaning trout that were born in the wild and ate food in the wild, and you put a little power bait there, you know, that trout is not going to eat your power bait. I'm sorry, I'm telling you right now, okay, that is the truth. That trout is not going to eat your power bait. It may eat a fly, it may eat an inline spinner, a spoon, a little minnow imitation, but it will not eat your power ball. I'm talking about lottery now. It's not gonna eat your power bait, okay? The reason why stock trout really, really like power bait is not just the scent, but it is because they were conditioned, they were used to eat pellets when they were raised in the hatcheries, okay? Every state raises their trout in a very, very similar way. And what you want to do as a smart angler, you want to find out what exactly they were feeding the trout in the hatcheries, so that once they are in the wild, even if they adapt in the wild, they still remember what they used to eat, right? And the answer is pellets. Most of the time, pellets, okay? And because those trout were so used to eating pellets, power bait really, really works. Another reason that I don't usually tell people, right, about this stuff, right, the color, I said that I really, really like yellow, right? And that's because I truly believe that yellow is the color that most closely resembles the pellets that they used to eat in the hatcheries. If not yellow, I go with orange or white. Anyways, this is the magic of power bait, okay? If you follow all the steps that I have given in this video so far, meaning very thin line and fluorocarbon, for God's sake, either if you go coated or 100%, although I would recommend coated, right? Go very light on the split shot as well, as light as you can, so that your stuff can barely hold all the way down there, right? And the small hook, cover your small hook graciously with power bait. Don't overdo it, and make sure you cover the entire hook. If you follow all of those steps and just throw your stuff out there and there are stock trout around, you will catch fish, okay? Another recommendation that I would give you for you guys, okay, and this is pretty much the last tip of this portion of the video, is don't leave your power bait in the water for too long if the fish are super finicky or you don't have a lot of fish around your area, okay? When it comes to stocked trout, right, if you go somewhere for stocked trout and the fishing pressure is very low, meaning that not a lot of people have been fishing in that spot or in that watershed, and there's a lot of fish left, you throw in a power bait, chances are you are going to get a bite right away. Right away. I would say within 5 minutes of throwing your power bait in the water, you're gonna get a bite. And when you get a bite, right, if you're willing to take this fish home to eat, don't forget, don't get too agitated, you know, don't get too excited. Wait until the fish takes the whole thing and runs with it, because trout will always swallow power bait. Once it is swallowed and the hook is in its stomach, you are going to take it home to eat anyways, right? So you just reel it in and you got your fish. All right. Now, if you are practicing catch, photo, release, I wouldn't recommend you to use power bait at all, okay? Because you're gonna gut hook the fish, and then you're gonna handle it in a very weird way, you know, and then you're gonna release it, and the mortality rate really increases. I have seen a few catch, photo, release anglers fish for trophy rainbow trout with power bait, and they actually knew what they were doing, okay? Hooking the fish in the water, making sure their hands were wet, and just clipping the line, you know, without pushing or anything, so there is no interior bleeding, okay? Internal bleeding. For all the other folks out there, if you were fishing for the trout and you are not willing to take it home to eat, please do not use power bait, because you're gonna release that fish, man, and that fish is gonna die within a few minutes, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, what I was saying is, if you fish a place that is very low pressure with a lot of fish, you get a bite within the first 5 minutes. If it is the late in the season and you don't have a lot of fish left, okay, and most of those fish were already caught and released, meaning they know about the power bait and they are very finicky about it, that is the time that you want to follow my advice. And my advice is hit different spots and keep your power bait inside the water only for a few minutes in each spot, okay? Hit the spot right here. Throw 2-3 rods in if you want at different locations, at different depths, right? Make sure you adapt your split shot and wait 5-10 minutes. If you don't get a bite, move along, all right? Just move along, my friend, because I've seen people fish for trout in heavily pressured areas, small watersheds, right? I'm talking about creeks, trout stocked areas, and they stay at the same spot, the same hole, the whole day without moving, and they end up not catching anything. Anyway, anyways, this is pretty much the explanation for the power bait. I just have here something on the side that is called the power bait, power eggs. One of my subscribers, long time ago, Nolan Miner, recommended this for me. I still have it with me nowadays. They smell incredible, okay? They're little power eggs, and the good thing about these power eggs is if you go very finesse, I'm talking about like size 12, size 14 hook, right? So that you can cover one of these entirely, okay? You better use this float as well, and the thing is, this doesn't dissolve in the water, okay? Power bait, if you leave it in the water for a long amount of time, doesn't matter how much time it passes, right? It is going to dissolve a little bit. Every time you cast and retrieve, it is going to dissolve a little bit. And not to mention, power bait does get really disgusting after it gets wet. You know what I'm saying? It is like Play-Doh, you know? This thing here never dissolves, you know? It has a much more mature consistency, okay? So again, this is always something that you would want to have it by your side, okay? I usually go with me with 3 containers of power bait, different colors, different scents, 1 with glitter and 2 without, okay? Because you never know what type of mood those trout are into. And I always carry with me these power bait eggs, okay? This is all the recommendation that I can give you in this video. You know, I think with this amount of knowledge, you are truly ready to go out there and catch some trout. So I'm gonna leave you with the last part of this video, which is pretty much myself just at the Pennypack Creek catching some good old stock Raymond trout for dinner, okay? Note that the fall limit for Pennsylvania is 3 per day, not 5 per day, right? 3 per day because it is fall, it is the extended season, and therefore this part that you are going to watch right now is a compilation of different days where I went down to the Pennypack and I caught myself some trout, okay? But so far, I can tell you that the fall trout stocking for 2016 here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania has been okay. I have caught plenty of fish, more than 25 trout in total, you know, but it hasn't been that great, okay? All right, fellas, thank you very much for watching this video. Enjoy the last portion, which is pretty much fishing, and I truly hope that you learned a lot, and I truly hope that you apply this knowledge next time you go catch yourself some stock trout, either as a sport fish or for dinner, all right? Tie lines, fellas, and until next video. Yo, what's up, YouTube? Leo Sheng here, host of the Extreme Philly Fishing channel. Today is October 12, 2016. You know what that means, guys? That's right, it is the fall opening season for trout here in the Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania. In other words, the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission is stocking the Pennypack today. Right now is about 350, I think, or 250. They should have stocked this portion of the creek already, because last I checked, the schedule said 12:30. But anyways, Cripper Kid is with me today. What's going on, Cripper Kid?
Good.
Man, he's shy. Anyways, today's mission is going to get Cripper Kid on a nice trout. Have you ever caught a trout before?
I don't think so.
There we go. So we're gonna expand his species list a little bit and make sure that he catches one. Limit per person for fall is 3. So let's hope we catch 6 trout today. Stay tuned. What does it smell like?
Lobster soda.
Smells, power bait smells like lobster?
Or maybe fish.
I don't know what power bait smells like, but anyways, this is what we're gonna do. See, we grab a small portion of it, like this. Okay, it's just like playing with Play-Doh.
Is it like apprentice bait?
Look, it's just like a Play-Doh, and then you put it.
Is it like apprentice bait in the aquarium?
No, come on. This is not Terraria, this is real life.
That looks like apprentice bait.
See? There we go. That's it. Done. We possibly have a fish here then. Fish on. Check that out, huh? Yeah. Oh, he got off. That was our first catch of the day, son. Did you see that? What a beauty, huh? We got a bite here, Kurt. We may have gotten a fish. Fish on. Easy to say. Check that out, huh? What a beauty. That's right. Gotta at least catch one during the opening day, right? There we go.
Wait,
Kurt? Kurt? Come here, come here. Never mind, never mind. Oh, wait. Come here, come here. Reel. Reel. Yeah. Wait. Oh, wait, reel. This way. Yeah. Reel it up, kid. You got that. Easy, it's a nice one. Oh yeah, check this out, your first ever trout. Isn't that cool?
Ow.
It's a fat one too.
Is it a rainbow?
Yeah, it's a rainbow. Let's take a photo. Oh, he's one got it. He took it. Come on, take it, fish. Fish on. Oh yeah, man. See, you changed the depth a little bit. and this fish start biting on the power bait just like that. First one of the day. Haha. Yeah, there we go. We got ourselves our dinner here. One caught, two left. Let's do it. Perfect. That's exactly where I want it to be. Fish on. Nice trout. Nice trout. It's a nice size. It's a nice size. Hopefully it doesn't fall off the hook. It's a nice trout. 4-pound test, you know. Gonna swing the hell out of it. First fish of the day on the power bait. As you guys can see, nice rainbow trout. That is gonna be dinner. So you know I don't really need to pay attention on how I handle this fish. Inhaled the power bait, okay? But again, this fish is going to be dinner. Beautiful stocked rainbow trout, Oncorhynchus micis. All right, 2 more to go. Oh, we got a bite. Pretty sure there's a bite. Yep, we got a bite. We got a bite here. Folks, we finally got a fish. Or a bite. Fish on. Nice. It's a decent little trout here. I have to make my way down so I don't lose this fish. It's a decent little trout. Decent little trout. That's I don't want to lose this fish because you know there are not a lot of fish left in this creek, so I want to make sure I land this guy. This is dinner right here, folks. Yeah, you can trash all you want, but you know, you inhale the power bait, you pay the price, trout. Check this out, huh? What a beauty, man. What a beauty. Got him. Oh! All right, got him. Check this out. Beautiful fish. Beautiful fish. Wow. That's a nice one. Inhale the power bait. All right, check this out. Nice catch. Beautiful colors. Fish on. Oh yeah. Man, I waited a long time for this trout here. You know, I waited until this freaking trout inhaled the power bait. It's not big, but it's a beauty regardless. Right, take it easy, fish. Beautiful sample. All right, now we are talking, PENNYPACK. There we go. And once again, power bait. Inhaled it. Ooh, easy fish. Easy. Yeah, that's right. Come on, take it. Take it. Fish on. One trout for dinner coming up here. Took a little while. Finally got this fella. Oh yeah, easy fish, easy. Not bad, not bad, not a bad fish. At least there's some trout left in this forgotten creek. Easy, easy. You're the first one of the day. Wow, it's a feisty one too. Oh no, it inhaled it. It's still here. Can I get it? Oh my God. I got it, 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 no, I got it. Where's my line that broke? Where's my line that broke? Oh, I got all dirty, but I got it. Whoosh. Man, what do we do to put a fish on the table? What the heck, man? But I got it though. You see, still got my line that broke off. Cool, coming from its mouth. Oh boy, first one of the day.